Everyone. So DeMarcus was right when he said it takes like 2 months for a light bulb to come in. Um, so I'm Julia Weatherspoon. I'm an architectural designer here in San Francisco. Can you guys hear me okay? So what that means is that essentially me and a design team design buildings. So we use 3D software. We work with electrical engineers, plumbing engineers, structural engineers to, envision a building within a 3D model space. And then from there, we create what you guys would call blueprints and what we would call document sets. And then those document sets get sent to construction companies, and then they are the ones that actually build those super cool buildings like Salesforce. So that's a little bit about like what I do. And architect does mean like master builder. So essentially you are like the master coordinator between all of these things. Like right now, as I'm speaking, I'm noticing all these cool little details of this space and all that fun like architecture nerd stuff. So like if I'm like starting to look at different things, don't mind me. So I want to do something that's kind of fun. I want to ask you guys a couple of questions. So raise your hand if you know of an architect. It could be famous or a personal one. Okay. Oh, that's a lot of people. Okay, you guys are great. So raise your hand if you know like a famous architect. Okay. You in the white. What is the name? What is a famous architect? Zaha Hadid. Ooh, you guys know. Okay, anybody else? Anyone else want to raise their hand? You know one? In the back? In the back? Oh, ooh. Oh, you're really great. Okay. Ooh, you guys are surprising me. I like this. Okay, so raise your hand if you know a woman architect. Zaha Hadid, but raise your hand if you know personally, like a woman architect. Ooh, oh, this is good. Okay. And then raise your hand if you know a Black woman architect. Who's that in the back? Is it your friend? Points for you. Cool. Okay, everyone clap for her. So essentially, like you were like the one person I was gonna see nobody has a Black architect friend or knows like a Black woman architect, but you are the one.
Sorry,
oh, and Nick as well. So just to follow up on that, I kind of wanted to run a few numbers by you. So in the architecture industry, there really is only about 150,000 of us, which is actually pretty small, compared to a lot of other industries. And it's very like niche. It's very, design oriented. Design oriented is about sustainability. It's about design performance. It's about all of those things. So within that number, only 23% of the industry is women architects. And then of that, for Black architects, it goes down to 2%, which is, astonishing. But then if you talk about Black women in architecture, it's 0.02%. So I like to call myself a Black unicorn. There's literally nobody. Like there's a couple and I've met some over the years, but essentially it's like me in the room and one of you or the only one. So if you decide to pull out your phones right now and Google architect, you wouldn't see someone who looks like me. You would probably see like a white male over 45, probably has circular glasses. He's probably wearing black. I've kind of adopted the wearing black thing, but other than that, it's definitely not someone who's wearing like Marley twists, like a short, like Black woman, you know what I mean? And definitely I don't fit into kind of the stereotype of architects being, brooding over their drafting tables and having no time to do anything else and stressing over the design. So, and most of my friends like know I'm such a bubbly personality. So it's kind of interesting that I'm like in this space, but I'm definitely not fitting into what it traditionally looks like. So I think that's really important because, once again, representation matters. And I say that because I don't know if you guys remember, but in 2016, there was an article about a woman who had just moved, a Black woman who just moved to Seattle because she got a new architecture job. And because she didn't have direct deposit yet, she decided to cash her first check at her bank. And her bank didn't believe that she was a Black woman architect. So they decided to call her headquarters to make sure and verify that she was an employee, called her HR, they held her account, and she was devastated. And that's why the article came out. And the funny thing is that that actually happened to me in San Francisco when I first moved here, not to the same degree, but when I first moved here, so excited to get my first check. And then I went to a bank downtown, and then they were like, this is interesting, so we're gonna hold your account for 2 days because we just wanna make sure that everything's like all good and gravy. And I've had this bank for like over 6 or 8 years. So I was like, is this really happening right now? It's because you don't necessarily see us in these spaces. So because architecture is very niche, I started to understand that I was kind of like that other. And that's not something that I knew growing up. I grew up in like a white suburban town, just 90 miles east of here. And I was 11 or 12, and I really liked playing this game called The Sims. Y'all like The Sims? Raise your hand if you like The Sims, SimCity, all that fun stuff. So I was really into it. I played it like day and night. But the funny thing about it was that I didn't really like playing the game. I liked designing the houses for the little Sims. I didn't actually like playing the game. So from that, I was like, okay, well, this is interesting. In high school, I had access to doing drafting classes and 3D design and sculpture courses. So that's kind of what reinforced my interest in being a designer. And through school, I decided that was going to be my major and all these things. And now as a professional, I now understand that my experience was very special. My experience was not something that is generally afforded to a lot of people of color. I mean, just look at that percentage, that 0.02% of, Black women being architects. So I quickly realized that I can use this otherness as like a superpower. So being in San Francisco, I mean, we do say it is diverse, but in a way, there was more that can be done. Especially in architecture, which is adjacent to tech. It's not necessarily business, it's not necessarily entertainment. We are adjacent, we got the VR thing going on. But I found that it was interesting to kind of push the narrative of representing us a little bit better. For our clients, like most of our clients are in the top 10%, of the world, and we're not necessarily serving the other 90%. So that is something that I've started to become more passionate about. Like, who are we not serving? Like, who is not getting design services? So I've decided to champion that effort and make sure that we are actually reflected in the designs that we do. So how am I good on time? So I do that in women's panels, in discussions like this, in talking to people in Oakland about visioning projects, working at summer camps for kids, projects, and pipeline programs, whether it's in architecture and design or whether it's in STEM, anything that is kind of like getting youth access to the resources that I had as a kid to understand and explore the things that I found were super interesting. When I was, let's see, in April, I actually did a hackathon. So I was at a conference and we did a hackathon, and we decided that we would address like projects or problems within the industry. And that was what my team came up with, like an idea to put the voice in the community's hands to kind of have a better idea of how you can design your own communities. Because a lot of the times we're like, we're the design experts. Like, we know exactly what to say. We know exactly how you want this designed. But a lot of it is starting to learn about what communities actually need and then how we can address those issues and solutions. So that's what I'm doing now, and that's what I'm really passionate about. And I found that embracing my otherness actually helps me give a voice to other people. So one of the final things that I want to say is a quote from George Washington Carver, and it's simply service that measures success. So I'm Julia, and I'm a Black unicorn. Thank you.